After back-to-back streaming movies, the Predator franchise is back in theaters with Badlands. So today I'm going to stop and rank all 9 Predator movies from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the Predator franchise. My list is not the right list, it's just my list, and I'd love to see yours, and let's get started. In last place, Aliens vs. Predator Requiem. This should have been an easy on base. An R-rated Alien vs. Predator movie in the suburbs where normal people live. The concept on paper is an easy schlock fest. And somehow in the execution with these characters, with this tone and how dark it is, it kind of turns into an incomprehensible mess. Now, I will say this movie played better for me on this rewatch than when I watched it in the past. And the big reason for that is I just did a 31 on 31 for zombies, which is I watched 31 iconic zombie movies. And a lot of them are about the collapse of society, government reaction to that. And essentially, this movie borrows that same template as those films, that kind of infestation and the government's reaction and overreaction. And for that reason, it just kind of gave me a different perspective on it. I appreciated a few aspects a little bit more. And even the end of this movie has been used by other films afterwards, like The Crazies and even a little bit of Army of the Dead. All of that said, I still just don't think this movie really works at all. A big part of that is that the characters are just so unbelievably forgettable. They're just stock characters for a generic horror movie set in the suburbs. They have so much backstory about what got them to this point, but there's no payoff for any of it. None of it matters in the backstory that they give them. It's just like generic slasher backstories with no purpose. There's no tension. There's no meaning to any of it. It's also a movie that is infamously difficult to watch because it's so dark. It's literally unwatchable. It's set at night with characters with black, dark skin or armor, and so you just can't make out anything. You can't figure out the geography. Once again, this played a little bit better because one of my YouTube friends, Drum Dum, sent me his fan edit of it where he just raised the brightness of the movie, and so it was quite literally more watchable. But if you need a fan edit to make your movie watchable, that's a bad sign. And there's also this line between being horrifying and graphic and just being in poor taste. And this movie, I felt repeatedly just went into the realm of bad taste for the sake of shock value, where chest burster popping out of a kid, or most importantly, a xenomorph impregnating a pregnant woman and then them popping out of her. Ew. Just gross, nasty stuff. So a movie that played a little bit better this time than normal, but I still think it's a bad script executed poorly. Next up, The Predator. This movie is infamous for a variety of reasons. Most importantly, because I left my wife and newborn baby daughter, Karis, at the hospital to go watch this movie, and then it turned out to be this movie. This was Shane Black returning to this franchise that he acted in the original film. So there was really high expectations for this movie. What was he going to do with the lore? He was kind of at the top of his game at that point in time, having made a $1 billion film shortly before with Iron Man 3 and then doing The Nice Guys right before this. And then the movie itself didn't exactly pay off the way we hoped. I'll say this. I think that this is a very entertaining bad movie, that I find this entirely watchable almost exclusively because I find the cast, specifically the loonies, to be fun. There's a camaraderie that forms amongst them, and there's plenty of Shane Black humor sprinkled amongst them, and so it just makes for a fun ride to go with them in their journey with the battling predators. All of that said, it is a bad movie. For a variety of reasons. I think Shane Black got a little bit too lost in his ideas with this movie, and he ran in a direction with the lore that I think just got a little bit too wacky, a little bit too weird, with autism as the future of evolution. I don't like the idea of a 15-foot tall predator. That just doesn't really interest me at all, because a normal-sized predator was already an incredible threat for Dutch and his team of, world-class mercenaries. So I don't need a 15-foot predator. It's just not interesting at that point in time. And so it just kind of went places that I don't think served the franchise or the movie. And then, of course, the test screenings for this film went horribly. And so they were ordered to do rewrites and reshoots. And so you get this movie that's just kind of cobbled together. And at points in time, it doesn't even make any sense. There's lingering lines of dialogue from when the movie took place over a longer period of time that are still in the film that make no sense with the movie that's actually released. There's so many images in the trailers, behind the scenes footage of whole other plot lines with Area 51, additional predators. And we'll never get to see any of that footage. So the movie as is, I do find it entirely watchable. It's just not good. Number 7, Predator 2. To be perfectly clear, I think that this is a good movie. I think it's a good Predator movie. It was the right decision to take the action out of the jungle, put it in the concrete jungle of Los Angeles. You don't want to just rehash what you did before, and so they did something fresh, new, and different with it. Likewise, it's its own standalone story, but it brings the government in a way that expands and connects the two films with kind of this government knowledge that brings in kind of a conspiracy theory, larger lore on the human side of things. I like all those aspects of the film, and of course it's just fun to see Gary Busey playing another wild, wacky Gary Busey character.
Lions, tigers, the bears. Oh my.
All that said, in the specific execution, it's just never fully clicked with me the way that all the movies higher up on this list have clicked with me. Some of that is that it feels just a little bit too much like Lethal Weapon with a Predator in it. I mean, you could just look at, obviously, Danny Glover, but several other cast members straight out of Lethal Weapon movies, including Gary Busey, producers, henchmen, things like that. It just feels, and it, of course, Lethal Weapon takes place in LA. It just feels too much like Lethal Weapon with Predator dropped into it. Keep in mind, even Shane Black wrote Lethal Weapon. There's so much connective tissue to Lethal Weapon that it just feels like cheap Lethal Weapon knockoff with Predator thrown into it. I can never get past that side to it. But I think more importantly, by playing it as a Lethal Weapon cop investigation, it doesn't work because the audience already knows the answer to the mystery. We've already seen Predator. We already know what this thing is. And so following a detective trying to figure it out, when we already know the answer, we're always ahead of the characters and the story itself. And so it just kind of falls a little bit flat. And then because the intrigue doesn't work, you need something else in its place. And the first movie had both intrigue and edge of your seat thrills, where our characters were in danger and getting slowly picked off till we only have one left. And that's not really the case here. You always feel like our cops could just go home and they'd be okay. Or you could just leave the city. So for that reason, it's always landed a little bit flat for me overall. Like, it's good. I don't have any big negative feelings for it. It's just never as effective as I want it to be. Number 6, Alien vs. Predator. I've always had fun with this film. It absolutely plays like big budget fan fiction, but enjoyable big budget fan fiction. It plays kind of like this merger of the two franchises with some flavors of Stargate and Jurassic Park thrown into the mix. And it kind of builds out this whole lore of the Predator bringing xenomorphs to Earth and these kingdoms that are hidden that we didn't know about them. And it just kind of makes for kind of this rich backstory that we're slowly discovering. Even, like, if I were to make an Alien vs. Predator movie, I wouldn't set it at the Antarctic in a ancient kingdom, but at the same time, it makes it something distinct that stands out amongst the other Alien and Predator movies with unique imagery to it, that you remember the film. And throwing Lance Henriksen into it, I think brings some gravitas and weight to a movie that probably doesn't deserve to have an actor like that bringing his weight to it. And just even the schlocky fun of the final girl teaming up with the Predator at the end, hey, it works for me well enough. This is not great cinema. It's just pulpy entertainment. Should it be rated R? Of course it should be rated R. I have the rated R cut of the movie that they've released on DVD and Blu-ray a few times. It's, extraordinary light rated R and adds a couple extra scenes that are actually worth checking out. But, it doesn't actually deliver the gore that you're hoping for from an R-rated version of the movie. Sure, that's a flaw with the film. These aren't amazing, memorable characters or anything like that, besides perhaps Wayland, and even that's just really because of the actor. But it delivered the schlock value of the mashup of these two franchises together, so
I liked it.
In fifth, Predator Killer of Killers, an animated anthology film where we get to see predators face off against the best killers across cultures, across time on planet Earth. And if we got one of these Killer of Killer movies every couple of years, seeing predators battling different cultures, I would be very okay with that. It's kind of a fun way to be able to play out little predator situations without just making movies that just keep doing the same story structure and doing the same thing over and over again. It's the right packaging to deliver something that many of us have wanted to see for a while. When the movie Predators came out, there's a sequence in there where the Yakuza guy faces off against a predator with a sword, and immediately everyone went, I think I want to see that sort of thing play out. Like, you could just take predators, drop them in all these different cultures, and that would be fun. And that's what this movie's able to do with Vikings, samurai, World War II. And each story kind of has its own little mini arc to it. It has its own technology for the predators as well as humans, different cultural context, different, like the World War II one is about a pilot. And so they play very differently, and then they pull together all of those different stories in a final segment that goes somewhere new with the lore. I didn't love everything about it. Some of it is too cartoonish, strains too much credibility, in particular in the World War II sequence where they're like standing on the plane, wings of a plane in the middle of flight, stuff like that. That's like, this is getting a little bit too silly for me. And same with some of the stuff in the fourth segment when they pulled all the pieces together. And I don't like the lore implications of the kind of the last sequence, as well as the post-credit scene, that it kind of feels like it cheapens some of the earlier victories. But overall, the idea of doing an anthology like this, I really enjoy. Also, if you don't know, they released an additional post-credit scene at Comic-Con 2 months after the movies came out. It's insane that they didn't put that on the original version of the film and they released it just 2 months later via Comic-Con. Like, insane levels of, why on earth would you do that? Like, I can't fathom, just mind-blowingly stupid decision-making. In fourth, Predators. Now, this movie was produced by Robert Rodriguez, who came up with the story, I believe, in the mid-90s. He didn't direct the film, but he was very involved in the process of it being created 15 years later when it finally happened. And it's a movie that I've always really enjoyed. I think it's a rock-solid Predator experience, and I've never fully understood why so many people kind of reject this movie, because I think it delivers pretty much everything that I want from a Predator movie. Granted, it is about the safest Predator sequel that you could make that does do some new things. It's not a straight remake of the original film. It does kind of have its own plot, its own twist, but it's a group of very dangerous people dropped in the woods trying to survive while being hunted by predators. Obviously, this is reminiscent of the first film in a lot of ways. But beyond that, I think the cast here is fantastic. And with time, this cast only kind of gets better. Like, Mahershala Ali is in the cast here. It had a bunch of great faces at the time, and then with time, it's only gotten better. And the idea of plucking people from different cultures, the different types of killers, I think provides a way to have variety amongst the cast, and does have a new fresh spin on it with them dropped in kind of this game preserve. There's a little bit of humor in there, in particular with Topher Grace and Walton Goggins being amongst the mix, but few other places in there just add a little bit of levity in there without getting overly silly. On rewatch, the biggest negative for me actually is the Lawrence Fishburne subplot that I don't think adds enough to the plot, and so it just kind of turns into this section where it just slows down for exposition dumping that's not particularly interesting. But otherwise, I think it's just like a really enjoyable Predator movie. A safe Predator movie, a bit of a remix of the original film, but at the same time, it was 20 years later. I'm okay with that, and it does bring enough new to the table that it has its own unique experience. And even with time, I don't mind Adrian Brody in the lead at all. When it first came out, I was like, hey, this guy seems a little bit miscast, but with time, I don't care at all.
And now, looking back on it, I just remember the good stuff.
Real quick, before I give you my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comments section. Let me know your ranking of the Predator movies. Also, if you enjoy videos like this, I've covered all of the other classic sci-fi action horror franchises from the 70s, 80s, 90s, Alien, Terminator, all of that fun stuff. You can check it out somewhere around here. In third place, Prey. Now, with this ranking, 7 of the 9 placements, locked in, confident in that placement. Places 2 and 3, I'm doing this and weighing different criteria. So who knows what the ranking will look like in a few years. Simply put, Prey is in third place and not second place because of rewatchability. If I was just ranking them purely on overall quality and lists of negatives, things like that, Prey would be in second place. But I just don't find it to be a particularly rewatchable movie. It's not one that I just gravitate back towards. And even in this rewatch, there were movies significantly lower on this list that I was much more like, oh, cool, I'm getting to rewatch this. And Prey doesn't have that factor for me. All of that said, this is a very cool Predator movie that found a way to strip away all of the extraneous extra lore and go back to the basics, deliver the Predator experience, but in a wholly new way, in a wholly new context. And it was exactly what the franchise needed at that point in time. By going 300 years into the past, going into a different cultural context, it just changes all of the superficial ingredients, but goes back to the survival, sci-fi, horror action of the original film. And it finds all sorts of ways to continue to follow the template of the original movie, but always in a fresh, new, interesting, different way. By having our lead character be someone that is a trained killer, that wants to prove herself. She's on her own hunt. She is the flip side of the Predator. But she's also continually underestimated by her tribe, by the French, and by the Predator, and in that own way makes her invisible to the Predator. And her specific skill set, the thing that she's good at, is observation. She picks up on the little things other people miss, thus giving her this advantage. And so you're able to get a movie that has the brutal action, spines being ripped out. You get to see a predator battle a bear and a whole bunch of French people not paying attention to what's going on all around them. It's beautifully shot, but also you get to have the final girl that someone that, because our predator's been weakened, because she's been able to survive these situations because she's underestimated, but watch and learn in each of the circumstances where she encounters the predator to piece together just enough to give her that edge at that moment where the predator's vulnerable or not paying attention to be able to win. And so just the right blending of all the best of the franchise in a new context that just makes for a very well constructed Predator movie. Our runner-up, Predator Badlands. And I don't know where I'll sit with this movie as it settles. Our runner-up, Predator Badlands. I don't know with time exactly where I'll settle on this film, if it'll just lock in as this fresh, fun new adventure with the Predator as the protagonist, or if I'll be like, no, it was a little bit too silly, too Disney-fied. I'm not sure. All I know is I had a great time in the theater, and it's a very watchable and rewatchable kind of film. Of course, the internet responded the way the internet responds, did this like polarizing, extreme shoots in two different directions. With this movie, it's really obvious why a lot of people would enjoy it and have fun with it. It's also really obvious why a lot of long-term Predator fans would be disappointed with the film and the direction that it went. And both of these are okay as long as you're not weird and aggressive about holding either one of these opinions. For me, I think they kind of did the impossible here, where they found this right spot of balancing, telling a story about a predator who's the run of the litter.
I'm constantly drawn to tales of the underdog with something to prove,
who his dad literally wants to kill him because he's so weak, but because he's a predator, he's desperate to prove his worth and goes on this impossible quest. And it kind of goes into full-blown adventure mode where our person has an objective, there's side quests, you build the team, and it worked. It actually kind of worked. And it integrated the Alien franchise in a way that didn't just feel like cheap xenomorph Easter eggs, like actually played out. If the Weyland-Yutani Corporation existed in the same universe as the Predators, what would they be doing? They would be doing this. It does have kind of this whole new tone that it can be silly, it can be goofy, it's very funny at times, it has comedic sidekicks, and I really hope the franchise doesn't just continue in that direction and abandon the horror and the seriousness. But did it work for me in this movie? Yeah, it kind of did. I am nervous that I hope that this doesn't break the franchise forever. That's a big fear that I have. There is also likewise a general fear of, does it demystify the Predator a little bit too much when you make a Predator movie where the real trophy was the friends we made all along the way? When that's the center of your movie, you go, okay, I hope that doesn't break the franchise. But, man, did I have fun with this movie? Yeah. Does it still have gnarly, gory kills? Yeah. Does it find a way to expand the lore and dive deep into the world of the Predators? Yeah, it absolutely does. And it feels like we're doing the expanded universe, the stuff that's been in the comics and in the video games for years. We're finally doing that as a movie. Cool. I'm there for it. I just hope we don't go too much further in that direction. But easily in first place, the original Predator, one of my favorite movies of all time, and one of the great sci-fi movies, one of the great action movies, one of the great horror movies of all time. John McTiernan manages to balance all the personalities, all the genres, all the tones, and just made a fantastic movie that just keeps ratcheting up the tension from beginning to end and keeps delivering these explosive, bombastic, awesome action sequences. And one of the reasons that this is so impressive is that this is a movie that had a pretty troubled production, where Jean-Claude Van Damme was originally cast as the Predator, and then with a totally different design, and they had to call people in last minute to try and fix that. And there were even some suggestions from James Cameron that kind of gave us the design that we have that made the Predator so iconic. Everyone was getting sick on set. It started as them joking around about after the original script came about, because these guys had this idea of what if Rocky battled an alien because they just watched Rocky 4. And you somehow, out of all that chaos, you get this amazing movie. And so much of that is that it starts off as kind of a classic traditional macho action movie of the mercenaries going in on the rescue mission. And then it transitions into this survival thriller where they're totally outmatched by the Predator, and it just raises the tension. And by the end of it, you've turned the ultimate soldier, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's larger than life, into a final girl. And so it just kind of flips the whole thing on its head while still delivering all of the things you expect from an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. And for that reason, because it does subvert expectations, it treats his character so differently and strips him down to his bare bones, where it's not the muscles, but it's his wits that allow him to be victorious. This, to me, is the least Arnold Schwarzenegger of all of his movies. Obviously, it's one of his iconic roles with all the quips, one-liners, get to the chopper, all that. But I don't really think of it as an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. I just think of it as Predator. And that is such a testament to how good the movie is and how good Arnold is in the movie and how it's able to deliver everything you expect, but in an unexpected way. And that's why nearly 40 years later, it stood the test of time, and it's only more and more praised with each year that passes. So easily, without question, it comes in at number 1. Remember, I've done a bunch of rankings just like this about all the other iconic action, sci-fi, horror franchises. You can check them out over there in that playlist. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.